My father kicked me out of the house with the DNA papers, while my golden brother smiled. But nobody taught him how to read paternity results, and he interpreted them backward. It's hard to put into words what I'm feeling right now because I had a family, or what I thought was one, but everything has changed because of a simple piece of paper. And the worst part is, deep down, I think I always suspected that something wasn't right. Ever since I can remember, I've felt like nobody wanted me in my family. My father, Robert, made it clear that I could never measure up to my older brother, Nick. I thought it might be because Nick was the son my dad wanted while I was a daughter, but the reason was different. Years went by until I knew the real reason for this. Why my father seemed to resent me so much. It was like he thought I wasn't his daughter from the start. Nick, on the other hand, looked exactly like Dad. He had the same sharp features, the same dark brown hair, the same look. I didn't look like either of my parents. People often asked me if I was adopted. That hurt. And now, a little over a week ago, everything came to light. The family dinner had been tense from the beginning. My father had been unusually quiet, barely touching his food when normally he'd be busy showing off Nick's achievements, big or small. Then, without warning, he dropped a stack of papers on the table. He declared that I wasn't his daughter, but the daughter of an unfaithful woman. He'd done a DNA test for both me and Nick, and the results, according to him, confirmed what he'd always suspected. I wasn't his daughter. I was the product of my mother's betrayal. He said that's why I had never been good enough, why he had never loved me. My mother didn't say anything. She just had tears in her eyes, but she didn't say a word. She didn't deny it. She didn't defend me. That answered the doubts of why my father had never loved me. I always knew he didn't love me, but hearing him say it out loud, that I had never belonged to the family, that I didn't have a place in this family, was a pain I wasn't prepared for. Then he told me to leave. For a moment, I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My father had always been cold, but this went beyond anything I could imagine. I begged him, please don't do this. I begged him to reconsider because it wasn't my fault. I had nowhere to go. I had no one to turn to. But he didn't care in the slightest. His decision was final, and I had to accept it, whether I liked it or not. I looked at my mother, hoping for some kind of support, but she just shook her head, her eyes fixed on the table. She wouldn't fight for me. She wouldn't even look at me. Nick was sitting across from me, and he let out a soft laugh. He had always enjoyed my misery, and this moment was no different. Crying on my knees, I asked him to let me stay. I hadn't done anything wrong. I spent my whole life trying to be the daughter they wanted, only to be kicked out as if I was worthless. But my father wasn't going to budge, repeating that I wasn't welcome anymore. Then, before I could process it, he raised his hand and hit me in the face. The slap was pretty hard. It wasn't just a simple slap. He gave it to me right across the face with all the force in the world, as if I was guilty of what was happening. That was it. There was nothing left to fight for. I grabbed some of my things and slowly walked out of the house because I had nowhere to go. I thought the slower I walked, the more time I'd have to think of some kind of plan. I ended up at my friend Sophia's door. She looked at me and quickly pulled me inside. For the rest of the week, I barely moved. I refused to leave her apartment. I refused to eat. I refused to talk. I curled up in bed and let the days go by. The DNA test remained untouched on the nightstand, and I didn't even know why I had grabbed it in the first place. I couldn't look at it. I was afraid that reading it would confirm everything. Then I really wouldn't have a family anymore. But after 7 long days of isolating myself, something inside me changed. I had to know the truth. And then I saw it. I read it once and again and again. And suddenly, I started to tremble for a different reason. My father had misinterpreted the results. Nick was the one who wasn't his biological son, not me. Nick, the golden child, the one my father loved so much, the one he had put on a pedestal, wasn't even his. You see, my father had been so desperate to prove that I didn't belong that he didn't even bother to read the results correctly. His hatred for me was so strong that he blinded himself to the truth. Everything made sense now. My mother's reaction, the way she stood there in silence, the fear in her eyes. It wasn't just guilt, it was something more. She knew. She had known all along. I was so angry about everything that had happened with my parents, with my brother, everything. But at the same time, I was amused that my father, in his eagerness to confirm that Nick was his, interpreted things backward. My father must have thought the test reported the chances of me not being his daughter as proof of infidelity, while a low percentage could indicate that there was no cheating or something like that. And now I have all this knowledge, the information that could destroy the family even more. My father hates knowing that I'm not his, but I'm not his favorite, and Nick knowing that Nick isn't his will destroy him. And that now lies completely in my hands. I have the chance to destroy them all, starting with my dad. Yeah, the same one who kicked me out of the house despite having considered me his daughter for years. Maybe consider is too strong a word to use here because he's treated me like I was just an unwanted guest in this family. Then there's Nick, who seemed to be enjoying this with his stupid laugh while I was being kicked out and he was winning, according to his twisted line of thinking. And then there's my mom, who didn't do anything to defend me. It doesn't change things too much for her because she's still unfaithful, but this could affect the family dynamic in ways I can't imagine. What do you think is the best way to reveal all this? Update 1. A few days have passed, but I finally did what had been on my mind the most. I confronted my mother. I needed answers from her because I'm not surprised by my father's attitude, but I am by hers. She doesn't even care about her daughter. That's what I didn't expect from her. A few days ago, I asked her to meet me in private, away from the rest of the family. She made excuses, almost as if she knew what was coming, but she agreed. We met at a quiet cafe in town, and as soon as I sat down across from her, I had so many questions that the words started to flow. I asked her what had hurt me the most of all, why she hadn't defended me. Following that, I continued asking why she didn't stop him from treating me like a stranger all these years. She could have made my life better if she had only confessed the truth. But she chose to remain silent while I had to endure the life I had. Her answer was complete garbage. She admitted that she was paralyzed by guilt, not only for the affair, but for how the whole family dynamic had fallen apart. She always felt trapped between protecting me and keeping the peace with my father, who, by the way, had become colder with her over the years. She said that even though she stayed silent, it was the only way to maintain some stability in our family, even though she now realized that it came at my expense. I told her that I didn't believe that excuse. Stability at what cost? My self-esteem? My mental health? I told her that she had the responsibility to defend me as a mother, but she failed. Her guilt, her fear, whatever the reason for staying silent, didn't justify the years of neglect and emotional abuse I suffered. I also told her that I was tired of being everyone's scapegoat. I told her that I didn't care what excuses my father or Nick could invent to justify their treatment of me. I didn't care about them, but her silence was what hurt the most because she was supposed to be my defender. She apologized, but you can't apologize for something like that. I was only listening to that apology because I confronted her. She didn't come on her own to apologize because she felt bad. She said that she wished she had been brave enough to confront my father for my sake. She admitted that she let Nick become the golden child because she thought that would calm my father and keep her marriage intact. On her list of priorities was her marriage, her husband, maybe Nick, and finally me. She may feel bad for me, but nobody in that family seems to love me. I don't regret confronting her. It was time, and I finally feel like I've said what I needed to, but now it's time to focus on my father and Nick. I want to see their faces when I tell them the truth. I should have done it before talking to my mother, maybe. Although I also think that my mother is an absolutely cowardly woman who will try to take this secret to the grave. So, I trust that I will have the scoop. Update 2. A few more days have passed since my confrontation with my mother. She contacted me again, begging me to meet, saying that she had something important to tell me. Honestly, I didn't think I needed to hear her. She had told me everything I needed to know, explicitly and implicitly, so I didn't need anything more from her. I once needed her to be my mother, but we all know she's not up to the task. But there's something in the way she asked that made me think she might have something else to tell me that might interest me. This caused me to change my mind at the last minute. I wasn't expecting much, but the moment she opened her mouth, I knew this wouldn't be just another round of regret. She actually doesn't know who Nick's biological father is. How could she not know? I couldn't help but make fun of her. I asked her directly how unfaithful you have to be to not know who the father is. My words were harsh, and I could see that they hurt her, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to be polite or gentle with her with everything she had caused and what she hadn't prevented during these years. My mother broke down with tears and everything that comes with it to get some pity from me, justifying that she felt neglected and unloved in her marriage. She said that my father, Robert, was always cold and distant, even in the early years of their relationship. She hoped that things would improve after they got married, but they didn't, and she felt trapped, alone, and desperate to find a way out of the emptiness she felt at home. Well, I'm the last person on the face of the earth you'll hear defending my father. But that's not why I'm going to side with my mother. My opinion about it is that both my father deserves to be cheated on, and my mother deserves all the consequences of having been. But two negatives don't make a positive, just destruction. And in that destruction, I was part of it because I had two irresponsible parents. I emphasized that no matter how unhappy she was, she chose to stay with him, be unfaithful to him, and ruin my life. She chose to sacrifice me, her own daughter, on the altar of a clearly toxic marriage. I told her that it was ironic that she had stayed for stability when nobody in this family had obtained stability. Not even her. The reason she doesn't know who the father is that she met men in bars during those years, saying that it was her way of escaping her unhappiness, even if only for a moment. She described herself as silly, selfish, and full of regret for the decisions she had made, adjectives that I share but that also fall a little short. They also apply to my father equally. It all sounded like those people who only regret when they are caught. It's not genuine regret, but a product of being caught and now feeling bad because they were discovered. Only that. It was then that I made a sarcastic comment about how lucky she had been that Nick looked so much like our father. I joked ironically that she surely had a radar for men with similar characteristics. My intention was obviously to make fun of her, but the moment the words left my mouth, something changed. Her face froze. Her eyes widened, and she took a deep breath as if a light bulb had turned on over her head. She whispered that there was a possibility that she had never considered before, one that she hoped wasn't true, but was the most certain possibility of all. She said that it was possible, and even likely, that Nick's biological father was my paternal uncle, my father's brother, David. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This is pure gold because every time my mother revealed something, it was even worse. But worse for my father, which is better for me in a certain twisted way. My mother was sitting in front of me confessing that she might have had an affair with her husband's brother and that Nick could be my cousin or half-brother. I don't know which comes first. After that, I left because it didn't seem like she had anything else to tell me. Now I'm afraid to meet with my mother again because it's terrifying what I might hear next. I don't know if I'm prepared for her to say that she had an affair with an alien or that my father is actually her cousin. It's like that. Every time I meet with her, she tells me something new that is more chilling, although the one who should be feeling a cold drop of sweat running down his back is my father, like the protagonists of horror movies when the killer lurks. What I do think is that this opens up the range of possibilities even more to tell him the good news. It's lucky that I've been busy to have this chat with my father because I would have regretted not having all this. Now I don't know whether to wait a month to see what other things I can use to my advantage. Update 3. Shortly after I left after my mother's confession about the possibility that Nick was my uncle's son, she began to bombard me with calls and messages. The only problem with these messages is that she was against what I wanted to do. Reveal everything and let things fly through the air. She begged me not to ruin the family, not to destroy her marriage, and to consider, quote, the whole picture. I may ruin the family, but only those involved. I don't care about the lives of Nick, my uncle, my father, or her, because they are all bad people. The more messages I received, the angrier I felt. It was never about apologizing to me, but only about her selfish motivations, which were to protect her marriage. Because even though my father knew about the infidelity, he never kicked my mother out. My mother saw how they did it with me and thought, better her than me. Well, now what I think in my head is, better the karma to her. I have all the evidence from my father's DNA test that he misinterpreted, plus all my mother's messages. At this point, it's purely about revenge. I'm not going to deny it, but they can't deny that it's a revenge that was taking a long time in my case. A revenge that I needed and that is going to feel beautiful when it starts to advance like the tide. It's not going to leave anything standing, neither the marriage of my parents nor the relationship of my brother with my father nor Nick's stupid smile. Yes, I think that last part is what will give me the most satisfaction. I know that some people might question the path I'm taking, the need to get revenge. But they've taken everything from me, and still, they found new ways to make me suffer. It's time for someone else to suffer, and there's no one better for this than the people who have taken care of making my life as miserable as possible, especially because they enjoyed it. I won't feel sadness, because now it's my time to enjoy it. Edit. I almost forgot, but thank you for answering my relationship with Nick, according to what has been said, would be a brother and cousin too. The joke that our family seems like European royalty. Update 4. Now I can sit down to write what has happened with the revelation to my father and Nick, and believe me, I'm enjoying writing this as much or even more than experiencing it. You can ask my friend Sophia because she also witnessed everything, and it's as if she had VIP tickets to this gossip. I asked my father for one last meeting with the excuse that I still had to pick up some things from the house, but I also needed to talk about some details. He accepted, which I didn't expect him to do so easily. Armed with the DNA results, my mother's messages, and my thirst for revenge, I arrived at that meeting ready to put everything on the table. It's what my father did a few weeks ago, so it's my turn. The family meeting itself was tense from the moment I walked in. My mother looked terrified as soon as she saw me because she was the only one at the meeting who knew what was going to happen. That must have felt like torture. Nick was there, as arrogant as ever, probably assuming that I had come to beg them to let me stay. My father was serious, as if it were a bureaucratic process that had to be faced, which isn't very different from how he has always been with me. But when I finished doing what I had gone to do, everything was very different. I looked at my father and told him that I was bringing back the DNA tests since I didn't want to have them, and I gave them to him in his hand, but I added that he should read them better because the first time he read them, he had interpreted them backward. I mentioned that if he read carefully, he would know that above the percentage there was a legend that expressed that meant the possibility of kinship. When I did, he started to panic and put on his glasses to read it better. He spent a minute or more reading carefully while I took the opportunity to see the faces of Nick and my mother. My mother's face turned white, although not much whiter than it already was. Nick hadn't changed his face much until I gave him a summary of what the tests really said. I was my dad's biological daughter, and he wasn't. It was when his smile disappeared, and he started to panic like my dad had a few seconds before. Even worse, my father was starting to react, and Nick was asking him questions to find out if that's what the papers said. My father was looking at my mother and was now angry with her. He asked her who Nick's father was. Then I answered that there was a possibility that it was his brother. In reality, there wasn't, because investigating the paternity test should say that Nick has some kinship with my father, but I wasn't going to avoid mentioning that, in addition to other men she slept with, there was also her brother. Then I told everyone that they would have a lot to discuss, and I told Sophia to leave because our work was done. From the street, you could hear the screams of my father and my brother, so everything went as I wanted. A few days later, I started receiving messages from my father. He left voice messages and text messages until I finally blocked him, but the ones I received and at least read tried to apologize and want to get closer to me, among other things. I haven't responded and never will. It's not that I'm interested in having a relationship with my father now, whether a piece of paper says so or not. My mother hasn't told me anything, but I've also blocked her before she could do it. When I did it with my father, I also remembered to do it with her, and I don't expect a message from Nick at this moment, but it's worth doing it to avoid it. Now, I don't know what will happen to my family at this moment, but I'm sure that it hasn't ended for them. But I have ended with them. It's time to enjoy the little bomb I've dropped and rest. I deserve it. I've been working on this for a long time. Update 5. I have the consequences of my previous update, and I'm sure you'll be interested in knowing them. It's not because it's my story. I think objectively you're going to want to read this. Let's start with my parents, who are now separated and asking for a divorce. Technically, it's my father who has asked my mother for a divorce, but for practical purposes, it doesn't matter. That marriage has come to an end. My father has left the house and has left Nick and her there. Why did he leave and not them? I don't know, but that's their situation. What I do know is that he hasn't taken the light of his eyes, his special little one, his reason for living, which is Nick, anymore. He's more like the fruit of my mother's infidelity, but if that seems hard to think about, you better not keep reading what he thinks of his brother. His brother has had a paternity test and confirmed what I mentioned before. My mother has really been lucky that Nick looked so much like him because he's not his son, although Nick was very eager for him to be so he could call someone his father. His mocking laugh has disappeared since the day I went to my parents' house, and since then, it has remained so, according to what they have told me. That's why he is desperate to find his real father, because he needs to call someone dad and have him fulfill all his wishes. But that is going to take time, because if my mother slept with men who don't even have her number, I don't know how she can find out who he is. And even if he does, I don't think anyone is going to treat him the way my father did when he thought he was his biological son. The confrontation between brothers is also worth mentioning here, because it ended in blows and with my grandparents separating them. But from what they have told me, since I don't know about fights, the one who was losing was my father after having called my uncle some things. The family isn't taking sides for either of them because they don't know who is worse, if the brother or my father for having abandoned 2 children in such a short time. Anyway, my relationship with my grandparents isn't much better than with my parents, but that's for another publication. And only my mother remains to finish this update. I already mentioned that she lives with my brother, but not that they don't speak to each other. My brother lives there because he has nowhere to go, but he probably would have already left her if it weren't for that. My mother is also being sued by my father for paternity fraud, which would be funny if it weren't so painful for me, because when I was the not daughter of my father, he not only stayed with her but wasn't thinking about suing her. But now that they have taken Nick from him, this has no forgiveness from my father's point of view. I suppose there will still be one more update to tell you about the lawsuit and the final consequences, but don't expect it to be soon or to be a very long update. Update 6. Don't say I didn't warn you. It has taken a long time. And it's a short update, but at least it's an update. My father has won the lawsuit against my mother. He still isn't talking to his brother or Nick. Nick has tried to talk to him because he still doesn't know who his father is, and, at least, he wants mine to be. Really, my father isn't talking to anyone because no one in his family has decided to cut off his brother, so he has done it with everyone. My mother has kicked Nick out of the house because she still isn't talking to him. Maybe that's also why Nick wants to get my father back. And that's it. Not much else has changed in my family because, since I took my revenge, everything changed too much.